I'm here at Hermosa Gardens Cemetery in Colton, California, in search of the final resting place of Morgan Earp, who is the brother of famed lawman of the West, Wyatt Earp. And what's always kind of gotten to me is coming to some of these cemeteries where you have people that are laid to rest back in the 1800s and such. It's just odd to me seeing all the modern buildings and everything kind of built up around it. But, you know, I guess it's kind of how it goes, especially here out in California when it was once the Wild West, and now it's fairly settled, even in some of the more rural areas. So looks like I'm kind of here in an older part of the cemetery, and look what I found. This is the final resting place of Morgan S. Earp, who served as a U.S. Deputy Marshal and of course was killed in Tombstone, Arizona about 5 months or so after the gunfight at the OK Corral, in which he participated in with his brothers Wyatt and Virgil, as well as Doc Holliday. As mentioned, Morgan was the younger brother of famed lawman Wyatt Earp. But, you know, let's give Morgan a little bit of credit. He also served as a U.S. Deputy Marshal. That's quite a bit of history just beyond the gunfight at the OK Corral in which he participated.
Morgan Earp was born on April 24, 1851 in Pella, Iowa, to Nicholas Porter Earp and his second wife, Virginia Cooksey. This actually made Morgan a half-brother to Newton, James, Virgil, and Wyatt. When his brothers went off to fight in the American Civil War, young Morgan and Wyatt tended the family farm back in Iowa. During the war in 1864, the Earp family left Iowa and moved to Colton, California. Then in early 1868, Morgan moved with the family to Lamar, Missouri, where his father served as Justice of the Peace and his brother Wyatt as Constable. Over the next decade, a lot would change in Morgan's life. In 1871, he and his brother Wyatt worked as buffalo hunters in the Texas Panhandle and spent months traveling around the Midwest. In 1872, they were both fined in Peoria, Illinois, for being found in a house of ill repute. They were both eventually sent to jail briefly for being unable to pay the $4.55 fine. During these adventures with his brother, Morgan met a woman named Louisa Alice Houston in the 1870s, who he spent the remainder of his life with. At one point, Morgan made his way to Kansas and in 1875 left Wichita for Dodge City, where he may have served as a deputy sheriff for a time. 2 years later, in 1877, Morgan and Louisa again packed up and moved to Miles City, Montana Territory, where they attempted to establish roots. Morgan got involved in gold prospecting in the Bear Paw Mountains, and in December 1879, he was selected as a policeman in Butte. During his time in Montana, it is alleged that Morgan got into a duel with Billy Brooks, during which Morgan was shot in the shoulder and he mortally wounded Brooks, though there is no evidence to support this. Of course, Morgan was always up for an adventure or the next big thing, so when his brothers Wyatt and Virgil headed for Tombstone, Arizona Territory, Morgan wasn't far behind. Morgan arrived in Tombstone in July 1880. During much of the Earps' time in Tombstone, Morgan's older brother Virgil held a commission as a Deputy U.S. Marshal and occasionally served as town marshal. Additionally, Wyatt served as a Pima County Deputy Sheriff for a time and a Deputy U.S. Marshal beginning in December 1881. The Earp brothers also got involved in many activities to make money, to include gambling. Tombstone was booming, and the region attracted miners, businessmen, rustlers, and a group of outlaw ranchers known as Cowboys. Amidst the gambling, thieving, stage robbing, and other ways to make money, the Earp brothers and the Cowboys were bound to feud. Throughout 1880, Morgan rode shotgun for various Wells Fargo stagecoach routes and worked as a messenger for the company. Additionally, Morgan was often deputized by his brothers to assist in tracking down thieves and carrying out justice in the county. By late 1881, tensions between the Earp brothers and the Cowboys, particularly the Clanton and McLaury brothers, boiled over. On the morning of October 26, 1881, the famous gunfight at the OK Corral took place. But unlike how it's portrayed in most movies, the gunfight lasted only about 30 seconds and was actually fought in a vacant lot on Fremont Street behind the OK Corral. The three Earp brothers and Doc Holliday went there to disarm the Cowboys. However, it devolved into a brief gunfight. When the smoke settled, 3 Cowboys were dead, and Virgil, Morgan, and Doc were all hit. Legend has it that Morgan fired the final shot of the fight and hit Frank McLaury in the head. Morgan ultimately recovered from his wounds and continued to serve as a deputy. Naturally, the Cowboys vowed revenge on the Earp brothers. On March 18, 1882, after nearly 5 months of tensions following the gunfight. Morgan found himself on a Saturday night playing billiards at the Campbell and Hatch Billiards Parlor. His brother Wyatt sat against a wall as the men enjoyed the seemingly peaceful night. Yet just before 11 p.m., gunfire blasted through the windows and an assailant shot Morgan in the back, with another round barely missing Wyatt's head. As Morgan lay in agony, the doctor determined his wound would be fatal. Interestingly, Morgan and Wyatt always wondered what dying was like and vowed to tell each other what they saw during those final moments. It was at this time that Morgan purportedly told Wyatt, "I can't see a damn thing." In less than an hour after being shot, Morgan died. He was just 30 years old. The next morning, James Earp, Morgan's brother, took his body west to Colton, California for burial. Morgan was buried in Slover Mountain Cemetery. However, an 1892 railroad project led to his body being exhumed and moved to nearby Hermosa Gardens Cemetery, where he remains today.
Morgan Earp's story was a lot like the other men of the Old West. It was full of adventure, promise, and an unfortunate death at a young age. But while his story may be similar to many others, and his life might just be remembered by this simple tombstone, let's not forget the great contributions he did make to the founding of the American frontier.